Hi, welcome to Ben and Barry on Football. This is the Top 5 show. My name is Barry Sterling Mitchell. I produce the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings. My compadre in crime is
Ben Dickerson, and trust me, it is no crime loving the NFL.
If loving the NFL is wrong,
I don't want to be right.
Yeah, that's some corny stuff right there.
Yeah.
Anywho, I produce the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings. And in the Top 5 show, we generally do the Top 5. We're going to do a little bit more than that because it's division weekend. So we're actually going to feature all of the teams that are still in. And we're going to talk about where they rank at the end of the regular season relative to the 4 areas that we always look at, which is, number 1, net points. Number 2, points for. That's the scoring. Number 3, points against. That's the defense. And the 4th area that we consider very important in all football, turnover differential. So, Ben, if you're ready to get started.
Yeah, let's remind everybody, turnover differential is offense and defense. It's giveaways and takeaways.
Giveaways and takeaways. Absolutely. And that's just so important nowadays and what's going on. I mean, 1 to 2 turnovers can really make the difference in a game. So let's get started with net points. So as you can see, these are all the 8 teams that are left competing at this particular point. And the wild card weekend has dispensed with the pretenders and now the contenders that are left, all 8 of them. So let's start with number 8. At the bottom of the heap in terms of net points, we have the Cowboys, the Dallas Cowboys with 15 net points. If you're looking, you see NP, that stands for net points. That is the differential between points for and points against. So as you can see, those teams, they have the asterisks, they have the letters, they're all playoffs. And that's one of the things that led me to utilize the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings, because I began to realize and see that those teams with the best net point were generally the top teams, and they were the ones that made it into the playoffs and eventually into the Super Bowl. So look at number 1 and 2 quite closely, but we not quite there yet. All right, let's go to 7, where you have your Eagles at 19. So these are 2 teams that struggled during the regular season to some degree.
Had their ups and downs.
And then kind of got it together as we move toward the end of the year.
Which is what makes them dangerous, because if you're a real NFL football fan and you're into the playoffs and you watch, you know it's the team that usually catches fire and gets on a run at the right time.
Yeah.
That does a lot of damage in the playoffs.
But these bottom 4 teams all kind of got their act together at the right time. The Colts were 1 and 5 beginning at the end of the season. Now they're here with 89 net points. Not far, only 10 net points behind the Chargers, who've played pretty well for the most part, at 99. These are teams, and we'll talk about, their abilities on defense because in many cases they're challenging on defense, maybe a little more than your top 4.
Right.
Patriots coming in 4th at 111 net points. Now everybody's really questioning the Patriots right about now. Are you questioning them as much as the rest of the media?
When you watch them play, you have to question them, because they've had some games where Brady hasn't looked good. They've definitely had some games when he hasn't been great. One of his main targets, Gronkowski, looks like an old man all of a sudden. Julian Edelman, who missed half the season, missed like first 5 games, is kind of rounded himself into shape at this point, but he can only do so much with his speed, stature, the types of routes that he runs. They have no deep threat. It's looking a little scary, and their defense is not top-notch. It's far from top-notch. They're vulnerable.
I heard someone talking about the Patriots and saying that their identity now is almost like a run-first power team.
Absolutely. But the crazy thing about the Patriots is they're one of those teams. You know how we sit around and teams are having trouble running the ball, and you know they want to run the ball, but maybe they're struggling a little bit and they abandon the run and go to the pass,
Right.
which Kansas City does quite often.
Right.
Since Kareem Hunt's not there, that is. And even when he was there, but I digress. The Patriots are one of those teams where they can say, okay, we're not running no more. And they can still beat you.
Yes.
They can still beat you.
They got the GOAT.
Right. So
They got the GOAT. But as you can see, there's a pretty big spread between 4 and 3-2-1. So your Rams are coming in at 143 net points, just 1 point behind the Chiefs with 144. And then the King of the Mountain, they're still, even though they haven't played well down the stretch.
well, they haven't been
Saints
spectacular. They
at
haven't
151.
really piled on the points. Probably I hate to say things that aren't true without checking, but probably the really last good blowout they had was probably the Eagles game.
Yeah, I mean, it
So-
seems as if once after they, especially after they played the Cowboys and they struggled offensively against that Cowboy defense.
Yeah, that game set them back a little bit. I
Mhm.
think that game caught them off guard, kind of shocked them a little bit, sent them back to the drawing board.
Yeah, and I don't think they scored at the same level since then, but they were scoring so prolifically earlier in the season. And
Right.
again, these points represent the entire regular season.
Right.
That they still wound up on the top of the heap there. So Saints number 1 with 151 net points. And again, home field advantage. If you want to see the Saints, you got to go visit New Orleans. And we'll talk about the matchups a little later, well, in another show called The Matchup Show, Ben and Barry on Football, The Matchup Show. And stay tuned for that. Let's move on to the next area of statistics that we like to look at. PF stands for points for. Now, this is the scoring statistic. This is who's putting up the points. Number 8, you have the Cowboys at 339. So the Cowboys win without scoring a lot of points.
They do win without scoring a lot of points, but lately they've been showing a tendency to really move the sticks and score the points they need to win games. We'll get to their defense later. They're keeping them in a lot of games, but people have been down on Dak, and he's really proven a lot of people wrong up to this point.
Now, I took a look at the scoring differentials in the wild card games,
Okay.
and the Cowboys won by 2.
All right.
So they're still not killing. They scored, well, we'll talk about they scored 24 points, but they gave up 22 points. So at least they were in the 20s, and you know, that's not bad. And when you're getting into the playoffs and you're playing, and they played the Seahawks, who had a really good defense.
I was going to say they did what they had to do, and they played a tough opponent.
Oh yeah,
An
yeah.
opponent that probably talent-wise is very close to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not a great defense, but a really good one, better than people expected. But they're a little challenged on offense, and they're not really scoring at a real fast clip. It's funny, we talk about scoring, and we're talking points for. The Rams, and especially the Chiefs, and to some degree the Saints, have been scoring so prolifically that some of these teams are doing like normal stuff on offense, and we're going, oh, they're not so good, you know? It's a crazy comparison, but
Especially in this year where there's record scoring.
right. When there's record scoring and you're kind of winning by 2, you know, people have a tendency to go, oh, well, you know, that's nothing special. Okay. Winning games is important. If you win by 1 or you win by 50,
That's
it's a
what's
win.
important. That's what's
right.
important. Ask the Eagles
Ah,
with the double doinks.
gee.
You know, Chargers coming in 6 with 428. So now we're into the 400s. You got 3 teams in the 400s: the Chargers, the Colts, and the Patriots. Colts at 433, Patriots at 436. Again, we keep talking about the Patriots as if they're really struggling, but you look up and they're right there toward the top, looking very competitive.
Well, let's remember the other teams in their division that they all played. They played twice. They got 6 games that they can put on a bit of an offensive performance against.
And speaking of, as I look at this, you might know this better than me, but you got the Eagles and the Cowboys. These are probably the only two teams from the same division that are still in it right now.
I believe you are correct.
Yeah. So that seems to be a little strange. Chargers, Colts. I think everybody's scared of the Colts right about now.
Yeah, the Colts are surging.
The Colts and Andrew Luck's looking awesome right now. Yeah. We talked a little bit about the Chargers. We'll talk about their defense in a minute because I think if anything, that's what most surprised people during Wild Card Weekend because they were field goal after field goal after field goal. In that game against the Ravens. And again, these are all top defenses.
They kicked like 4, didn't they? 4 field goals?
Yeah. Patriots at 4. Saints, third in scoring at 504. And again, if they're number 1 in net points, that means their defense has been doing some pretty good work. Questionable defenses, but awesome offenses. The Rams at 527. And the Chiefs coming in number 1 at 565.
So the Chiefs are roughly 50. My math is bad. 330, 530.
And 525 would be 40.
It's about 40. Okay.
Yeah, it's about 40.
So they're 40 points above the next team.
Just a little less, yeah.
Okay. The Saints are at 504, which is
38, I'd say.
Which is way above the Patriots. So those 3 teams, when it comes to offense, are definitely the top-notch teams.
Yeah.
And, if people are still holding on to defense wins championships. But, again, this year with the prolific scoring and all.
Rule changes.
Which is partly brought on by the rule changes. Mm-hmm. It's allowing these offenses to really get it going. So you got an old savvy veteran. You got a second-year guy who's kind of turned it around from his first year, looking not so great. And then you got a second-year guy who's essentially a rookie.
Essentially a first-year starter.
It's essentially a first-year starter.
Leading the league.
And these 3 guys are running the top, by far, if we don't count Brady, the top offenses in the NFL.
No doubt about it.
This is going to be interesting to see how this shakes out.
And that's part of the reason why I'm pushing the concept of Patrick Mahomes for MVP.
You got to put him up there.
Really, this is ridiculous.
Not only that, but of course, the eye test, the things you see him do.
It's funny. They had something where he was like on the field with some guy. He was like demonstrating passes or something.
Okay.
And he was like looking this way, like zoom, and hitting stuff like. He's like Magic Johnson, coming down, looking this way, and passing that way.
It's kind of like people that they say have like a photographic memory. Like if he sees something over there, he's able to see it, gauge the distance, everything in his brain, turn away, and his arm will react. It's like his brain talks to his arm and says, I got to throw it this hard, on this angle, on it. Some people have that. It sounds kind of crazy, doesn't it?
Well, photographic memory is one way to look at it. And I hadn't really thought about it like that. I was thinking more about peripheral vision. He's got that vision where, he might be looking that way, but he's still seeing
I don't know. Those look like true no looks. Like Magic used to do that. Magic would turn completely and just so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he's truly throwing no-look passes. But the left-hand pass that game and all that, it's crazy. It's just crazy.
Yeah. And so now they don't have the running back that they started out with.
Right. Kareem Hunt is down. Damian Williams has come in and played pretty well, though. And after a week off, Spencer Ware will probably be okay. So they'll have 2 running backs that can split.
And we didn't mention Patriots. Sony Michel's supposed to be back.
Sony Michel is back. Yeah, Sony Michel's back. James White is fine. The Patriots are a pretty versatile team on both sides of the ball, but especially offensively, they'll give you a lot of different formations. Their backs can line up wide, stuff like that. So that kind of takes some of the heat off of them having to lean on Gronkowski as much. I hope he catches a pass or two, man. Watching him run down the field is painful. If you just focus on him running down the field, it's painful. He looks awful.
Well, the good thing about that, they had a week off. They had some time.
Yeah, but he's taken some games off and come back and still not looked that good. I
still didn't look that good.
Yeah, I think he needs a whole off season. My opinion.
You think he'll even be back? That's really the question.
Well, I mean, I tell you what. If he retired, I would not be surprised at all. But I don't think he wants to go out like that. I think he wants to take an off season and try to come back and see if he can recapture.
Okay. Defense. Does it win championships? Because if it does, number 8 Chiefs are in trouble.
Right. So all you guys out there that are going, yeah, Chiefs, yeah. Be careful.
Speaking of, yesterday they had the Madden Championships.
Oh, I missed it.
I was going to call you now, and I
didn't. They'll replay it. I'll catch you.
They'll probably replay it.
Yeah.
Everybody's playing with the Chiefs.
Yeah, see, that's
one
corny.
game had the Chiefs playing against the Chiefs.
That's corny. I hate that.
That's gosh,
that's terrible.
Chiefs, Saints, and I think Rams were like the only teams that I saw.
Anybody was ever used.
Yeah, they and everybody's throwing to
Tyreek Hill.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, because he can outrun it.
He can outrun it. I know. Speaking of running, Rams Gurley, what's the deal with him, man?
I'm hearing that Gurley is actually fine, that they're bringing him along slow. He had inflammation in his knee. So it's not so much that it's an injury per se, but I think he took some shots on it, and he got some swelling and some fluid in there. I didn't hear anything about him having it so bad they had to drain it or anything. It was more rest, ice.
He had a knee like mine. Probably better than yours, but
yeah, mine was. I ain't got nothing left in there to swell. They took everything out. So.
Yeah.
He should be okay.
He should be okay.
Yeah.
Saints. Now you notice your top 3 scoring
are the bottom
three on defense
in the same order backwards. Huh?
And again, when I talked about Mahomes for MVP,
right,
I'm taking into account that defense.
Yes.
Because when you're number 1 in scoring and you're number 2 in net points, that means you've overcome a defense that was not performing very well.
Absolutely.
And for a first-year starter, that's just, amazing. You
Absolutely.
Take him out, and it's a whole new game.
Yeah. I mean,
Alex Smith wouldn't have done that.
For most of the season, when we were going week by week through the regular season, the Chiefs' points against ranking hovered around 26 to 30 the entire season.
Yeah.
They were at the bottom.
Yeah.
So, I mean, being at the bottom now with only 8 teams left isn't as bad as where they were in reality, in respect to the rest of the teams in the league. But
Andy Reid never really had bad defenses. He always had decent defenses, as I remember.
He always had decent defenses, and he usually kept a decent defensive coordinator too, because he's such an offensive mind that he didn't want to have to be bothered with that too much. So he did his due diligence in his staff building. I'll give him that. Andy Reid's problem is, we'll get to that in the matchup show because everybody's talking about it.
Yeah, and we used to always complain about in-game game management.
Yes.
Like during the game.
Yes.
Speaking of defenses that have improved, your Eagles are coming in at 348 here. All of a sudden, the Eagles defense is looking scary, looking really scary. I mean, and Michael Bennett has been a good addition.
Absolutely.
For that defense.
Absolutely.
I mean, he really is. He's just another aspect. They already got, I forget the guys, what's the All-Pro?
Oh, Fletcher Cox.
Fletcher Cox already creating havoc.
Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Bennett, Jernigan.
Yeah.
There's some good linemen. Better against the pass than they are against the run, but did their thing against the Bears. Didn't shut them down, but slowed them down. And it's an amazing thing. We didn't talk about the offensive line for the Eagles when we were talking about the score. That's true. We should actually give them some props. I get on here, I talk about the Eagles and all. It's not really the Eagles, it's Eagle fans, but the
He's
team
a Giants
itself.
fan. I'm a Niner fan.
Yeah, I have to keep it real. Like, you know, you Eagle fans can get out there and talk all that Foles magic and all that stuff because that's probably all you can figure is doing this. But your offensive line is really, really just grinding. Like, they're good players that had an injury here, a suspension there, injury there, and now they're like, we all we got. And they're playing extremely well together, extremely well. And their front seven, which was already the strength of the defense, is just putting the team on their backs and getting it done up front. Well, and that's where you win games, in the trenches. So, you know.
But they're backs. And again,
I talked about that last week.
Nobody knew who they were 3 weeks ago.
It's strange, but 3 to 4 weeks ago when the other guys started going down and they started putting these dudes in, they got a chance to actually stay together and gel as a unit.
Yeah. And they have done
so you got lesser talented players playing better as a team. Boom.
It's an amazing thing.
Talent that works hard beats talent.
And as far as the offensive line is concerned, again, look who they had to go up against in the last 3 games. You know, Khalil Mack, J.J. Watt.
Yeah.
You know, and these guys not getting the pressure on Foles. Now, of course, we took a look at a stat. Foles is getting rid of the ball faster
very quickly
than some of the Hall of Famers out there, like 2.4 seconds or something ridiculous. That's like
true.
that. So he's
on
really
average
moving that ball and getting it out of there, which makes it hard to get to him. But long story short, when you're looking at a Khalil Mack, you're thinking, you know, I don't care how fast you get the ball, he's coming, you know, and he's going to disrupt things. And really hadn't done much. Points against Chargers are number 3 at 329. Now, we talked about the Chargers. They played the Ravens. They played Lamar Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Lamar has uncanny speed, ridiculous speed, but the Chargers had a strategy.
Yes. They basically outcoached the Ravens, to tell you the truth. They had just played them. I think it was almost 2 weeks, like 11 days previously. They had pulled out all their game film on top of all their fresh memory from playing them and figured out how to stop him. Not only figured out how to keep him under control, but how to pretty much stymie their entire running game. Because the 2 running backs that they use the most, Dixon and Gus Edwards, they're both slightly different type of backs. So they had to deal with that because they substitute them pretty freely on top of the different types of ways that Lamar can hurt you with his legs. And they were able to actually rein all that in and figure out how to put it down. And basically what they did was what? They had smaller guys, D-backs.
They put like safety
guys that play safety
in place of linebacker.
In the linebacker spot so that they could fly around, run and hit,
and catch them.
Yeah, right, and wouldn't get run away. So when Lamar tries to get outside and turn the corner, on a regular linebacker, he's going to pick up a first down or beat you for a long run. Not with a safety chasing him.
Yeah.
It gets different.
A little bit different.
And they were good enough hitters to slow down the running backs when they came off tackle or up the middle.
Which is what we talked about. It's like, okay, you got safeties and backs at linebackers, like turn to the power game, run that power game on.
Right.
But you know, they were able to they were able
but because they were determined and because they basically had one job.
Right.
Because because the Ravens are so run heavy, they didn't have to worry too much about getting fooled. At least not early in the game. Now you saw later in the game when the Ravens made a little late comeback with him throwing the ball is because they were kind of caught in between. Like, we know we can't keep running, but they keep running, and then he throws. So they had a little difficulty there. But early on and deep into the third quarter, they pretty much are like, they're going to keep trying to do what they do best, which is run the ball. And that's what we're here for, to stop that. So, you know.
When I looked at the wild card scoring and points against, the Cowboys gave up 22, Chargers gave up 17, Eagles gave up 15, Colts only gave up 7.
All those games are low-scoring games.
They're all
that's beautiful. Everybody's defense is ramping up for this run. I mean, they're like, yeah, we know there's been prolific scoring in the league. We know guys are breaking records and throwing all these touchdowns and all. But if we're going to win, if our team is going to win, we're going to have to stop somebody.
Speaking of stopping somebody, how come these Patriots keep showing up in the top? We keep talking bad about
Yeah, I know.
Second and giving up points.
And they got a bunch of no-name guys on their defense, too. They got some veterans that are still hanging around, too.
But they're only 1 point behind the Cowboys at 324. And the Cowboys have pretty much been considered like one of the best defenses, and nobody's really called the Patriots one of the best defenses. But when you look at who's left now, in terms of who's giving up points, they're right there.
Okay. Let's break the season down into quarters. So let's say the first quarter into the second quarter of the season, which is what? The first?
Well, we call the first quarter of the season the second preseason.
The second preseason. So we heard talk of the Cowboys defense being improved and could possibly be one of the top defenses, yet they were struggling to win games and they were having their problems. But slowly they started getting better and better and better. They got better before Dak got better. Yeah. So everybody turned their attention. Everybody want to talk about Cowboys, start turning all their venom on the Dak. I don't think he can do it. I don't think he can carry him. The defense is good, but I don't think he can do it. Then they played him in that last regular season game when they didn't have to, and he had a really good game. I think that was the smartest thing that Jason Garrett did all season was to let him play that game. Absolutely. I don't know if I would have kept him in the entire game, but everything was going their way.
Now, what are they doing at linebacker? Because Lee got replaced by what's his name? Was it a rookie?
Yeah, Vander Esch.
Vander Esch, who's got some
player,
good speed, and their linebackers are fast.
Excellent player.
Their linebackers are the sideline to sideline quick.
I don't know what they're going to do when Sean Lee is 100% again. I don't know if maybe they'll move Vander Esch to the outside.
That would be a thought, but even there, Vander Esch came in as the quarterback of the defense, doing
flawlessly.
Well. Yeah,
flawlessly.
Yeah, I mean, really, come on now.
And I gave the Chargers props on the defense that they played against the Ravens. I have to give the Cowboys props on the defense that they played against Seattle. Seattle, another run-heavy team, very run-heavy. Like they'll just run and run and beat you over the head with their running game, and then Russell, boop, he'll get you. But they were very, very run-heavy, and the Cowboys knew what they had to do if they were going to have a chance to win this game, and that was get 3 and outs, slow these dudes down, hope our secondary can handle Russell and get them off the field so we can get Zeke the ball. And they did it, and they did it impressively.
Now, I will add, and we talked about this, I didn't think that the Seahawks offense did their run game any favors. Cowboys playing 2 deep, and they're trying to throw straight down the middle deep on them early, like first down and second down, and putting themselves into second and long, third and long.
Yeah.
Where all of a sudden
we're talking even in the first half, right?
Right. Yeah, right off the bat.
So now I'm going to do what I always do. and try to figure out.
I'm gonna let you do it.
And try to figure out why teams do what they do. Even if we don't agree with it, even if we think it's goofy, there's a reason why people do what they do. The only thing that I can think of why they would pull back on their run game that got them to this point, and they still tried to run the ball quite a bit, but they did pull back and throw the ball a little more often than I expected them to in the first half, is that they thought that they could catch the Cowboys by surprise.
Off guard.
That they would load up, you know what I mean? But then
on the run.
What we talked about before is if they're playing a 2 deep zone, they're playing basically a Tampa 2, as the people like to call it, then you got to throw at the boundaries. You throw comebacks, you throw fly routes, you throw double moves, you throw deep outs.
Adjustments.
Right. You throw slants or crossing routes underneath the 2 deep safeties. You don't go right at them. That's what they're back there for.
Yeah, their job is to make sure that you don't do that.
Yeah. So I think Pete Carroll, I don't know. He kind of messed up that one. Yeah. And they still had a chance to win. That was a good game. All the games were good games.
Well, Dangerous is no joke. You know, he's still a man, but
Yeah.
you know, and he didn't even do a lot of running.
No, he was trying to get the ball downfield. They
downfield.
were struggling moving the sticks and staying on the field. So they had to get downfield to keep the ball moving, keep drives alive.
Absolutely.
Because they couldn't run and they couldn't get 2nd and 3. It just wasn't happening for them. So
moving on, Todd, turnover differential. We love Todd because it does say a lot about a team. And here we go. Number 8, your Eagles with -6 turnovers. And again, this is as of the end of the regular season. Now, in turnover differentials during the actual wild card, the Cowboys were +1. No, -1. Eagles were -2. Colts came in at 0, and the Chargers were +2. So in that game. So, you know, that's how that worked out in that particular game. But relative to the regular season, Eagles struggled. And again, a lot of those turnovers were during the Wentz period.
Right.
Because Foles has not been turning over, even though he did throw 2 against the Bears.
Yeah, he did.
He threw 2 against the Bears. So, you know, he is vulnerable to do that. Chargers coming in with +1, Colts at +2, Cowboys +3, and your Saints at +8.
That's interesting.
Isn't that interesting? And as bad as the Chiefs' defense is, their turnover differential is good because, again, I think their secondary is more the problem. Their front 7
is
or so
pretty good.
Works pretty well.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a challenge. We'll talk about that again in the matchup show. Are you tired yet of seeing the Patriots at the top here?
I know we keep trying to forget them, and you just can't forget them. They keep showing up.
And we've talked really bad about the Rams' defense. They have not been what we thought. But, again, turnover differential in their favor. I always say, though, again, look at who the Rams really like to beat up on. The Cardinals and my beloved, hand over the heart, Niners. They really beat up on our teams, and it really pumps up their numbers. We'll see how they fare going into the division games that are coming up. And, again, we'll talk about them in the next show on the matchup show.
One thing, the Patriots and the Rams, or rather what you just said about the Rams and their division opponents, the Patriots have the same thing going for them. Sometimes game flow dictates that a team just has to throw the ball just to try to make a game look respectable, let alone try to catch up when games get away from you. And sometimes when you play the Patriots and teams like the Rams, the game gets away from you. You're throwing it a lot, which makes you susceptible to getting sacked, getting the ball knocked at the end, strip fumbles, strip sacks rather, and interceptions, tip balls on errant passes and things like that. All those things go up when you're chasing a team that scores a lot. So
yeah. It's, you know, those last 4 minutes, you know, I always like to say last 4 minutes of the game are probably the best part of the game as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's like, you know, everybody picks their game up. It's almost like when we used to talk about in basketball at the All-Star game. Like everybody's playing around the whole game. And at some point they go, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
We're losing here.
Yeah.
You know? And all of a sudden
they're like, all right, y'all, we only down 15. It's 4 minutes left. Let's go. We can still win this.
We can still win this. Ben and Barry on football. We just wanted to let you know where you can find us. We will share our social media actual pages with you in a minute before we completely sign off. But if you go to www.benandbarryonfootball.com, it will take you to our YouTube channel where you will find all of our videos. On Twitter, you can find us at B&B on football, and on Facebook at BNBOF. So let me sort of switch over a little bit and share with you some info so that you'll know when you see people trying to send me. I hate these messages, man. Trying to send me messages. Yeah, you know.
You can't get them off of there?
I don't know. It depends on how many messages they're sending me.
Holy crap.
You know, I mean, really. Golly B, what is this? Oh, you know what this is? Birthdays.
Oh,
I do birthday. I'm always sending out happy birthday, happy
you.
birthdays, and I do it on Messenger. And then you're like, thank you.
This is our Net Point Power Ranking page.
This
Facebook.
is the Sterling Net Point Power Ranking page at Sterling NPPR. This is where you'll find our write-ups. The Eagles had the largest bias going against them last week, so they were the bias buster
of the week.
You had to give it to them. And there's your winners there for Wild Card Weekend. You will find Ben and Barry. If you go to Facebook, that's what you will see. And again, we try to put some information here. There's the piece on Parkey where his miss was officially ruled a block, and
they booed him off the field. It was ugly.
There was people who threatened his family, and it really did get ugly there. Even though I have to admit, some of the memes that I think the one that I like best was you seen a commercial with the Panthers coach and the guy's getting ready to kick the field goal.
Yeah,
and everybody's just
pops their Pepsi open.
And they go, and he goes doink right off the thing, and somebody put Parkey right in there for the kicker.
Oh man!
And I'm like, I really got to get my graphics up because I mean these things popped. I mean the thing had barely hit the upright, and the memes
and they're right on it.
They were on top of things right away.
That's crazy.
Here we are at Twitter, Ben and Barry on football, sharing some information. Here's the gift. We talked about him. This is Saquon. The season is barely over, and Saquon is at it. He is at it already.
Was a beast.
He is a beast of all beasts. And I mean, and the reason we called him the gift again was because we said he was a gift to Eli by extending Eli's career. And
he's a gift to the whole city of New York.
Absolutely. I mean,
he'll be here way past Eli.
And even if, you guys get another quarterback next year,
Dwayne Haskins,
Eli will still be there.
To mentor him,
can get him ready until Eli screws up, and he'll be in there probably.
I mean, you know what they're going to do. Look, we talk about this at the beginning of every season. Why is so-and-so still in there? You drafted this guy. Every team tries to do the little slow roll, make sure he's ready. We don't want to ruin this guy, But like you said, you just need the right kind of screw up. And you're like, get it
out of there. We were talking about with the Ravens game, and I was saying
Flacco put his helmet on. I was like, oh, I think he was trying to tell the coach something like, dude, I'm ready.
I think he was ready.
I'd put him in.
I'd have put him in. But you had to lose.
You were
down at that particular point. All right, Benny. Any last words?
Nah, we're done here.
We're done. See you next week.
Matchups.
Talking about the matchup show coming up soon. Thanks.